Hello. It's been a minute. I tried to make this video last weekend when I had 3 days off. And this video touches on the subject of politics. And that is something I really want to stay away from. But I think it's important for this conversation. I want to add a little bit of a disclaimer here in the beginning. A little bit of a disclaimer. Look, this video started with my having a conversation with a friend, a person I respect, who has shown me respect and kindness, patience, a person I disagree with. Actually, the truth of the matter is we are so divided in this country right now that we agree just about different opposing perspectives. This friend of mine has made a financial decision based on fear about what will happen in our upcoming election. A decision that only fear could drive us to. As far as this disclaimer is concerned, I want you to understand a few things. Because my conviction does not make me righteous, and that holds true for everybody else. My perspective does not mean that I am not lost, and that holds true for everybody else. Because somehow in the absurdity of this life, I have found myself being a talking head on a screen somewhere, does not make me right. And that holds true of everybody else. When I thought about this initially, this divide yet similar positions, he is pro, and if that pro doesn't come to pass, we are screwed. I am anti, and if his pro comes to fruition, we are screwed, is my position. And we're both reasonable people. We both look inside and reflect and try to understand the world that we interact with. So how can this be true? How can it be true that two reasonable men can look at the world they're in, have completely opposing positions, and also the conviction? I think the fundamental cause to that divide is that we don't have a plan. As a society, there is no plan to come back from where we are now. The only plan we have in place is how to push this further, more economically, more fundamentally, more judgment. Look, my whole life, the cancel culture has been on the right. When I was a kid, it was backwards masking and heavy metal makes the kids do drugs and Tipper Gore and cults everywhere. Everything was a cult when I was a kid. The right was originally the cancel culture. And now, maybe it was always like that and I never noticed it, but now certainly it is true that the left has adopted that position. We have come to a point where the original position held by the right was untenable for growth, but as they claimed, and maybe they were right about some of it, that growth in the wrong direction was harmful. Maybe. I can see the arguments for that. But now it's ubiquitous. Both sides are shaming, bullying. They can decry on one hand bullying and right the next minute. I don't do Twitter or X or whatever the F it is. I don't do that stuff. But they could go from one tweet to the next, one saying we should abolish bullying and this is terrible, to actually bullying in the next tweet. Do you guys still call them tweets? I mean, it's not Twitter anymore, it's X. I mean, you don't call them X's. Possibly confusing, maybe, but you still call them tweets, right? I don't know. That's neither here nor there. We are in a position of opposition, not making a plan, pushing forward to make this divide even greater. So the likelihood of our species being able to come up with a plan and operate or enact that plan is becoming less and less of a viable thing. It's less and less something we can actually do. I understand that that is the problem, that the divide is that. There is no plan. But why? Why is there no plan? How can it be that after all this time, with all the data at our disposal, with all the insights, with all the intelligence and determination, we cannot come up with an actual plan that our species can get behind? We don't even have, as far as I can tell, an organized country on this planet that has a plan that they plan to use to lead the rest of us. If it were me, if I was a leader of any country on this planet right now, my main thought would be, how do we get our country to come up with this plan, show its viability so that it can be replicated around the world? Are any leaders even thinking that way, or is it just survival of the fittest pushed to this extreme? Why are we here? What can we do about this, collectively or even as a side? I have recently been a convert. I was matter before mind. I am now mind before matter. What does my conversion mean to me if it doesn't? See, my conversion is irrelevant to anybody else on the planet except to me. If I am going to join a side, I can't do it just for me. That's just not how I'm built. I realize that I'm an isolated person. It would seem that most of the things I do are for me. But intellectually, when I search and when I work and when I meditate, I don't meditate about how I can improve myself, how I can improve my situation. I always meditate on how can I make things better for us. It's not a plan. It's not, I don't have some bullet pointed things laying around somewhere that says, this is what I need to meditate on to make myself better, to make my circumstances better. I will sacrifice my circumstances to make things, for the slimmest of possibilities of making things better for others. That does not make me righteous. That is a personal choice. So why are we here? Look, I was on the side of the left in the United States for a very long time. I reveled with the people who preached evolution, with the people who preached progress, with the people who slammed my side that I am now on, the mind before matter side, the faith-based side. I was with y'all until I realized you guys are just another religion, and I was being very religious while I did all of those things. I'm not going to talk about the left beyond this. I want to talk about the right, the side I am supposed to be on right now. Why are we divided? I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk about my side by trying to lay out a series of points that are meant to awaken something in you that says, look, if I'm right about even some of these points, or one of these points, there needs to be some reflection that goes on inside of you. Now, I'm going to start with the flippin' obvious elephant in the room that is our current presidential choice. Look, I just want to get this out of the way. If you are watching my face on your screen, I am anti-Trump. I am not pro-Harris, but I am anti-Trump. He does not represent anything like faith, anything like what Jesus would have had us do. If the development of our species is the development of consciousness, if Jesus Christ's work with our consciousness was to add empathy and a way to deal with a new kind of interior life, then there is nothing more anti-faith than that dipshit. And you know what? There it is. There it is. What I just did is exactly what I'm talking against. It was disrespectful, and it was born of frustration. It really was born of frustration. I should not talk politics. I apologize. In my lifetime, most of my life I have been against religion. And I have reasons for that. And I understand those reasons far better now than I ever did in my lifetime. All that time I spent railing against God and the belief in God, and how ludicrous are you to believe in this all-powerful, when all of this is, all of that energy I spent back then, I am completely on the other side of it now. And I want to show you some of the things, some of the reasons why it was so hard for me to come to this conversion. And really, I want to, like I said, get the top out of the way right away, because if you don't want to watch somebody that's anti-Trump, then you don't want to watch somebody who's anti-Reagan either. My side has voted for 2 puppet actor politicians. I am too young to speak in depth on Reagan. I wasn't here for the arguments. You know what I mean? Like, I am here for the arguments with Trump right now. That spiteful, like what you just saw, and I will not remove from this video or redo the video because of it, because it proves a point. I am here for the debate on Trump. I wasn't really involved in the debate on Reagan because I was too young. It didn't mean anything to me. So the nuances of the damage to our society are lost on me because of that. So I just wanted to get that first bit out of the way. My side, during my lifetime, the side I am now on, has supported what has turned out to be apartheid in the Middle East. I don't think that that is reflective of what we are supposed to be about. My side, in my lifetime, has argued vehemently for our use of torture on other human beings. I don't believe that is something that in any way reflects the work we should be about. My side has argued vehemently, passionately for wars. Clearly not something we should be about. My side is the side of televangelists, which are now being replicated in so many ways. The televangelists build, the activities of a televangelist is to get as many people as you can, as devoted as you can, or as suckered as you can, to increase your wealth. That is a televangelist. That's what it's been since the beginning of TV and evangelism. There are so many examples in my lifetime of this. The earliest one I can remember, and for any of you younger people, you could just Google the Bakers, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, I think it was. Tammy Faye Baker, I'm sure of. I think it was Jim Baker, whatever. But there's been instance after instance after instance of this in my lifetime. And in my lifetime, the church has gone from this what it should be, a collective of like individuals there to support each other and grow together, to this mega church, all money, I am safely saved and I don't have to do this kind of work that I am telling you we need to do, what we are called to do. The right side. See, this brings in a lot of other religions as well, but it is relevant. The right side of the political spectrum has been the side most prominent in acts of terrorism. The right side, my side, has been the biggest proponent of exploitation through weak and underfunded regulations. That's my side. And the one that really sticks out to me is that my side has been the side most strongly against being good stewards of the creation. That's my side. That's the side I have joined. Why in the hell would anybody who thinks like me undergo this conversion? The problem is my conversion and now my faith and my interactions with and meditations with and fellowship with, my prayers, I see nothing coming from that conversation and that work that says, oh, well, they were right to argue for torture and war and exploitation and deregulation and all of this shit. My conversion has never shown me, it has not yet shown me in any way how I was wrong about these perspectives. Remember, my perspective does not mean I am not lost. Neither does it mean that for you. How can we be so divided? If you believe the hard line, the literal translation is of the Bible, you can understand why the left would be divided. They are lost. I don't agree with that perspective entirely, but I can understand the perspective. They are lost. But aren't you too? Isn't my side extremely lost? All of this, I think, can be explained by a misconception of faith, a misconception of spirituality. I have to be upfront about this. When I say there is a misunderstanding of spirituality, I am mainly influenced by the Christian side of it. I don't have experience of dealing with and trying to empathize with Islam or Buddhism or anything else. My life has been here. My life has been what it has been, and it has been more heavily influenced by Christianity than anything else. If you are somebody who is watching this, who does not have that experience with Christianity, but has it with Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism, whatever, I encourage you to take my insight and see if it applies. My, for instances, will be different than yours because you have different experience. But I'd be willing to bet that it would apply there as well. How can Christianity go from the work that was Jesus? We have named it after the man, after the God, Jesus Christ. We have named it Christianity after him, little Christians. How can the side I am now on make that claim and be so far from the example? I think I know how. I think the spiritual worth of the individual has been rooted in ego. Spirituality based in ego, not based in faith or grace. Is spiritual conversion, if it's based in ego, not grace or faith, legitimate? Now, this is something that I struggled with my whole life. I was first saved when I was a child, and then again when I was 20-ish, whatever. And now again for the third time. I've been baptized twice in my life. And both those first times, I am certain that my conversion, my belief, my faith, and my reasonings were true of heart. I was true of heart when I did it. But from the conversion on, I had nothing but struggles trying to bring about some kind of logic between what I saw in the world and what the people who were supposed to be representative of elders in that faith and the actual word. I think the best example of ego as opposed to faith, like your spirituality is based in your ego. Ego is this thing that tries to differentiate between, it tries to take what the subconscious or unconscious mind really desires and project that onto reality. How can I make that reality? How can I make that survive through this reality I find myself in? It is the part of us that tries to accomplish the things we really want. Now, you can't tell, and I've said this before, but you can't tell a person like me that we have something called a subconscious or an unconscious, that unconscious mind, that you can't tell me that and not expect me to go digging and find that thing. If that thing exists, it's something I don't have absolute conscious control over, I am going to find it and understand it. When you do that work, you kind of tend to eliminate the subconscious, or you don't eliminate it. What the struggle then becomes is, like when I tried to do this video last weekend, every time I started to talk, I found a reaction in my, what you would call a gut reaction. I try my best not to make any of these things to get likes or shares or follows, to in any way manipulate you. I am trying to understand why this world works the way it does. I'm trying to find linchpins inside this world that can make a change, you flip that switch and things can actually improve for the individual as well as the species. That is my work. And if it becomes based in ego or trying to succeed or be respected, that is manipulation. That is a red flag. And every time I tried to make this video last weekend, there were a lot of red flags flipping up all the time for me. I said X and the red flag pops up and I'm just like, you know what? I can't do this. I probably started it 4 or 5 times and I ended up shutting up, which I think was a good call. Where does this confusion between ego and spirituality come from? I think I found one of those vulnerabilities in that most of my life, what has been shown me as Christianity has been this flipping back and forth to answer, this is where prophecy was fulfilled, and he says this here in this book because of this in this book over here, this flipping back and forth. That is an egotistical search. That is trying to compound things that verify what you already believe. And it's being done with a work that isn't what you think it is. I know I am a new convert. Since I've converted, I've only read the Bible once. I realize that people who watch this are going to be like, I read that thing 50 times. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what it is. But you only think that. See, this is the arrogance. You have to watch out for this. But you only think that because you don't understand that work. When God interacts with us, the first question I want to ask, if I ever get to meet him, is what was it like to interact with us as a species? Because what that book shows me in the Old Testament and then in the Gospels is whenever God interacts with us, the results are disappointing, to say the least. No matter what he tried, the results were just crazy. And that was because he's trying to interact with us. And, well, we are what we are. I've already explained what we are in several videos. And the same thing holds true in the New Testament. When you justify what Paul says, or what Jesus says by what Paul says, you are justifying what your God says based on what a man says. When you say that that book is holy and immutable, it is the truth, you are not talking about the these and thous. That is not true. What you are talking about is a mimetic work. We are the ones that use English and Hebrew and whatever language. He can speak in those languages, but that is not his language. His language, when it comes to consciousness, which is the work we are for him, is mimetic. He speaks mimetically. When you take literal translations and try to make them fit spiritually, you are exercising ego. All right. I'm trying to be patient with this. I know this subject has a tendency for me to rant. Let me try and bring it back to a little bit of solidarity. One thing my side and I agree on is that abortion, past a certain point, is absolutely murder. I realize that the debate on abortion is human rights and timing. Some people believe there is no timing issue whatsoever. Any abortion is murder. I don't agree with that. But then again, I don't think that we perceive this reality as what it is. I don't think the vast majority of the spiritual side of our society understands what they're... I don't think you understand that that work is not a literal word of God. It is a mimetic word of God, which is the word. The word is the mimetic way he influences and interacts. The greatest of which would have been the acts of Jesus, his purpose was to instill empathy in a world without it. And here we are, 2,000 years or 100 plus generations on from it, are we able to finally stop missing the point? Because one of the things my side is about now is building a damn wall. I don't pretend to be an expert on immigration law, but let me just give you a little brief take on how I see this issue. We, through the 80s and 90s, spent a lot of money. The greed is good people spent an incredible amount of money that created some very big problems south of us. Some very big gaps in wealth and power, which plunged a lot of those societies into poverty. And now that we are on the downward slope, our society back in the 80s and 90s was kicking ass. Now our society is on the downward slope. We're going to be struggling. We've decided that we don't even want to deal with this. We are going to give up our responsibility as good stewards to the creation and just build a wall. And that's it. That's not a Christian perspective. That is, I'm going to protect what I have. I'm going to protect my capabilities of getting more by being a terrible fucking steward. Or a terrible steward, depending on the situation. I can't support that side. I can't, in any form of good conscience, support that side. And I think this history that has been over my lifetime, this perspective that has been pushed further and further and further to the extreme, has encouraged the other side to go further and further and further to the extreme until we cannot meet. So, if my work is to somehow inspire or enable the capacity for us to do better, I can't help the left side anymore. I'm not with y'all anymore. You guys have gone off the rails crazy. And the saddest part about that statement is you're still not anywhere near as off the wheels crazy as the side I have joined. They are effing nuts. We are effing nuts. So how do I help? Where's the hope? Where's my plan? I've given little glimpses of what my plan is. Okay. My side says we need to have more babies. I don't agree with that. But I will point out that there are babies and fully grown humans that want to come here. If you're worried about not having enough to grow an economy, by the way, an economy which is being grown through exploitation, if you want to continue to grow that, maybe you don't look for the same babies you're looking for. So you need a plan that addresses that. Here's a plan for you. Wait first, before the plan. If I was to have I wanted to interject this, but I keep forgetting about it because, anyways, if I had a production company or access to a production company, I did a video on build a production company as a way to finance the plan that I have. One of the things you hear about in the world of stories in this world is that if the opportunity ever comes where someone asks you if you have something to say, because a 8-episode spot on something streaming service like HBO or Netflix without something to say, without something to contribute, is an enormous waste of resources. So I try to have these things. I know it's unrealistic. The odds of somebody tapping me and says, hey, do you have a story that you would tell if I gave you these resources? That isn't going to happen. But if it does, I'm prepared for that. One of them would be to highlight the disparity between what the example in spirituality, Jesus Christ, what his example was, and what, how, and why we got so far from it. I got a billion of them, but I want to interject that. I'm going to give you the plan as I've given it to you before, but all of the things that I can conceive that would generate capital are all about trying to build the brand that is the plan. The plan is this. All of our ecological models, all of our models tell us that fossil fuels are a finite resource. Eventually they will cap, they will run out, and up until that point, they will just cease to become, or they will just continue to become more and more valuable, more and more costly, either to extract, refine, or sell, or buy. All of the models tell us that the current economical models are growth through exploitation and placation. In the United States, that means trying to placate or trying to grow and ensure that there is a middle class. There is something the bottom can aspire to as a bridge to get to somewhere else. We tend to think that we're all just unfortunate, we haven't been lucky yet millionaires. It's not true. It's not even a righteous goal, but that's how we tend to see things. The problem is we want to build it, and even our biggest and best minds when it comes to economics, like Amazon or Tesla, all of these things seem to be contrary to actually having a successful plan for all of the things we want to accomplish here. Amazon is incredibly terrible for our environment. Terrible, but it's great for wealth. And when he built it, when Bezos was building it, he went a long time with just cost. When are you going to show a profit, Mr. Bezos? Doesn't matter, just get bigger. And it worked. It was incredibly bad. It is all the examples of how we are doing things wrong rolled up in a nice little ball. To another titan of our industry, which is Elon Musk, who, if you remember the struggles of the Tesla, remember that he was building the cart before he had, or he's building the horse before he had the cart. Anyways, he's building an electric car. He tried to sell it at cost, or just above cost to stay profitable, and he had to have this big meeting about how the price was going to increase. He was very embarrassed by it, but he still pulled it off. Either way, his success shows that people are willing to project a type of righteousness in their conviction towards fixing the environment that is entirely imaginary. Because the way we charge these stupid fucking cars is through fossil fuels, by and large. That is imagination. That is not hope. That is not change. That is somebody who made a car and sold it by lying. Maybe he is a genius. Maybe. I don't know the man. I know his brand, and it doesn't interest me, but I don't know the man. If you are smart, take this fucking plan that I'm going to give you and stop building the fucking cars that just feed people's ego. There's spirituality that is based in ego. It's both sides that have this problem. Because both sides are fucking religious. Anyways. The plan. Okay. We know from our models that the way we are going through natural resources, the way we are using those resources is bad for the environment. We know that our economic systems are breaking down. Middle classes are dissolving and going away. There's a lot more exploitation. There's a lot less chance for success. The chances for success, the margins are growing so fast that the larger the gap gets, the quicker people are eliminated from this possibility. All of you people who think you're just unfortunate, not yet millionaires, as this gap grows, that becomes far more fantasy, is more unlikely. Therefore, your absolute belief in it becomes more fantasy. We also know that if we want to change the grid that Mr. Musk, if he's so brilliant, should have built first, we need to generate green energy. And we also know that the least populated spaces in our continent are the best for generating green energy. We also know that the grid we currently use for distributing this energy is not conducive to becoming entirely green. How is it that nobody sees that those things solve themselves? That by combating one thing, you can solve another thing? That this problem, the problem that faces society and religious views, is a potential win-win. I think I know why you don't see it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why we can't do it. It only matters that I show you how it can be done. If we flip this all on its head and we make the energy generation the product of the masses, not the product of the big corporations, we change the dynamic of what businesses look like. For one thing, if my job was to generate green energy on my property or my house or whatever, I need a company that can come do regular maintenance, that can do installation, that can do research and development to build better things for me to make more money on it, because my job is to generate energy. We won't do that if we go in our current models, because to push it further and further and further into this disparity, we need more and more exploitation, which means we need more and more power at the top, which means energy companies will be the ones that make the green energy. If you flip that on its head, we are the ones generating the energy. It's your best shot. It's our best shot at flipping the financial problems on its head. It also changes the way we build. Right now, we build in a common sense way that fits with the economic models that we've had since fucking Egypt and before, which is the powerful give to the masses. This is a system that has been around all of my life, my parents' life, my grandparents' life, in my entire ancestry. This system has been in place. By being good stewards of the creation as an individual, actual spirituality based in spirituality, not ego, we can solve the climate crisis. We can flip economic disparity on its head. What happens if we do this? If suddenly our continent is transformed from big, huge hotspots of developing energy and distributing it out to many, 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 many little spots of generating energy and distributing it out from there. In other words, we're distributing from us to the consumers. The power dynamic changes as well, which is one of the reasons I don't think you're all going to see this. The power dynamic changes from the big conglomerates, the big corporations, to the little guy, which is, I thought, the point of this United States of America. Isn't that what we were supposed to be doing here? Forget religion altogether. Isn't that part of the underlying foundation of why we built this fucking experiment to begin with? I don't see the anti-argument to this. And maybe that's just a shortness of understanding on my part. But what does this do? Why should we try to strive towards a world where people have to work less? Wouldn't the lack of necessitating hard work create a softer society? I think that argument is based in a misconception. If the work of God was to replicate consciousness, and I've made that argument before, that's the work I believe it is. If the work of Jesus was to give us the tools we need in order to grow that consciousness, what does having a stronger position, less fear, less having to grind just to survive, what does that do for the growth of consciousness? And what will it do with the tools we have available now? What does giving us more time for reflection, more time for meditation, more time for actual growth of consciousness? See, the definition of consciousness is an organic process. This process is going on right now, has been going on while you've been here, and will continue to go on for the rest of the time that you are here. No matter what you do, or what you think, what you believe, or how you pray or meditate, that process is organic and ongoing. Mimetically driven or fueled. To be fueled means you are in charge of and understanding the memes and the drive, and you are in charge of these things. To be driven is to take the responsibility for understanding what is building your consciousness out of your hands and just lay it in somebody else's responsibility. To be driven means that the ideas come at you and you don't even consciously choose anymore. Everything is just reinforcement of what you already believe and know to be true. If we allow and work towards a society that allows us to actually build and grow consciousness, which is our work, what does that world look like as opposed to this? We say we want to break the system, and they've been saying that my whole life. The theme of the 60s was break the consciousness, or break the machine, break the cycle. The theme of the biggest television shows or stories of my generation in my lifetime were all about, let's break the system, let's build a new wheel, let's just not have a wheel. And it's considered fantasy. But what else is fantasy for if not to inspire us to actually do something in reality? This has gone on for a while. It's almost 50 minutes in. I guess if you can take anything away from this, if you've hung in there this long, if you can take anything away from this, if you have made a decision, casted a vote, lived a certain way because of some of the examples that I have mentioned here, and these examples, upon reflection, clearly should red flag and consider you to reflect more, to think more deeply. Just please do that. Because your certainty does not make it reality. My certainty does not make it reality. I could not make this video last week no matter how hard I tried, because I understand that my perspective does not make me right, does not make me, because I have this perspective, does not mean that I am not lost. Because I am a talking head on your screen does not make me right. My conviction does not make me righteous, and it does not for you either. Your conviction does not make you righteous. Continuing to believe that way is just going to increase our divide. And when I tell you that I agree with you on the abortion, to a degree, I agree with you on abortion. I also agree that there is an aspect to this where we are telling half of our population, yet again, that we really know better. You should really just sit back and listen to us. And that has been a weakness for our species for a long time. It has been such a weakness that we didn't even fully understand that vulnerability until recently. But even if, forget about the sexist and the chauvinistic and that aspect of it. If I am right, how does the history of my side in any way lend authority to us to enforce that or to impact other people's decisions, to influence them towards our point of view? How can we expect them to listen to us when this is the side we've come down on for all of my life? Torture, war, exploitation, the absolute neglect of our responsibilities as being good stewards of this creation. Where does your authority come from? Because if you are claiming it comes from God, you're wrong. God is not working that way. If you are willing to do the work and make the changes and build your spirituality not in ego, you will gain authority. People will have to listen to you because of the results of your faith. Let me tell you, we are so far gone from having an actual workable plan to solve this shit. And I think one of the primary reasons is entropy's completely worked its way into every aspect of faith on this planet. I have talked about the two opposing energies, entropic and creative energies. I have talked about the long-term struggle about these things. You can go back and look. I think I even named one. Entropic and creative energy or something like that. We cannot function as the spiritual and faith-based side of our species with no credibility. And right now, other than invoking the name, we have none. We ourselves have zero credibility. We have to overcome that before we're ever going to see any kind of positive influence towards our perspectives, our beliefs, our faith. The left is the side of empathy. Do you not? The entropic energy side is the side that is using empathy to push us away because we can't get past the spirituality based in ego. It is our greatest vulnerability. So, it's almost an hour now, and that is a lot of your time to ask for. Hopefully, something here was useful to you. I realize my plan is vague, but I'm trying to work within a constraint here. And I have other videos on the plan. I am not a fiscally responsible person. I am not good with the minutia of surviving in a capitalistic society. I should not get the money and the power. But my ideas, I would like to see them replicated in the minds that are meant to do that sort of thing, that are good with the fiscal responsibilities, that are good with the growing of wealth. Because to have a plan and to grow wealth that supports that plan is our only chance to turn this around. It's the only way we can. And nobody is fighting for it. Nobody. They're yelling for it. They're preaching for it. They're shaming for it and bullying for it, but they are not working for it. None of us. That's why there is no plan. That's why we are where we are. Thank you. Have a good weekend.